Some breaking news right now. Disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein has taken his own life while he was behind bars here in New York City. Epstein was facing trafficking.
What if one of America's most beloved family men wasn't just close to Jeffrey Epstein, but part of the same hidden world that kept powerful predators untouchable for decades? Emails, secret meetings, and shocking connections all point to a web no one expected. Watch closely because the truth is far darker than it seems. Breaking news has just shaken New York City. Jeffrey Epstein, the infamous financier at the center of a sprawling trafficking scandal, has reportedly taken his own life while in custody. Epstein had been awaiting trial on serious charges related to the exploitation of minors, leaving many questions hanging in the air about the full extent of his network. Meanwhile, a startling shadow now looms over one of America's most polished public figures. What if a man carefully cultivated for family-friendly appeal, someone like Steve Harvey, wasn't just peripherally connected to Epstein's world, but potentially enmeshed within the same insulated ecosystem that shielded predators for decades? As fresh documents related to Epstein's surface in Washington in November 2025, patterns of associations, overlapping time, and unexpected friendships are emerging with an unnerving clarity. This is not a casual mention buried in an obscure email. What is appearing is a tangled web linking Epstein's correspondence, Diddy's legal troubles, and even domestic controversies surrounding Harvey. Across these documents, connections recur during the same periods, among the same circles, and often under a veil of silence that is as deliberate as it is chilling. Experts observing these revelations argue that Epstein's strategy was methodical. He saw himself as intellectually superior and spent decades meticulously curating a network of influential people. Through trafficking and manipulation, he amassed not just power, but secret information about individuals that could be leveraged or shared strategically across his circle. In mid-November 2025, the U.S. House of Representatives released over 20,000 pages of the so-called Epstein files, spanning roughly 2008 to 2019. Among the documents are emails in which Epstein claims that former President Donald Trump was aware of the girls in his orbit. Additional correspondence details hours spent in Epstein's residences, corroborated by witnesses including House staff, shedding further light on how deeply prominent figures intersected with his operations. As the Epstein files surfaced, Democrats and Republicans quickly fell into a familiar battle over interpretation, each side accusing the other of cherry-picking emails to shape the narrative. On the surface, it may seem like partisan bickering, but the bigger takeaway is that these documents are no longer idle gossip. They are now part of the public record, shedding light on previously hidden relationships and networks. Layer on another story. Sean Diddy Combs. In 2024, after years of speculation and civil disputes, federal prosecutors launched a broad case against him. Former partners and insiders testified about what they described as orchestrated encounters, stretching back to at least 2008. By mid-2025, a New York jury cleared Diddy of the most severe allegations, including racketeering, conspiracy, and trafficking by force. Yet he was convicted on 2 counts of transporting individuals across state and international lines for paid encounters, each charge carrying up to 10 years. Currently, he is serving a 50-month sentence in a federal facility in New Jersey, with a revised release date projected for June 2028. While his legal team plans to appeal and he maintains his innocence, the revelations about choreographed and filmed encounters have already dismantled the carefully curated, wholesome mogul image he once projected. Amid all this, transparency efforts from the Department of Justice provide crucial insight, though nothing resembling a smoking gun has yet emerged. The real digging, as observers note, must extend beyond the surface. This is where Steve Harvey enters the frame, as Epstein was exchanging audacious emails about presidents and power brokers, and Diddy was allegedly orchestrating an elaborate private operation. Harvey was building a public persona as daytime television's moral compass. He lectured audiences about responsibility, ethics, and how women should hold men accountable. Yet, behind the camera, his own ex-wife, Mary, leveled severe accusations, psychological torment, financial manipulation, and what she described as soul destruction, a mix of emotional, mental, and purportedly coercive abuse. In 2017, she filed a $60 million lawsuit claiming conspiracy, emotional torment, and more. The case was dismissed on jurisdictional grounds, with a judge ruling it belonged in Texas, and Harvey's team calling it baseless. Still, the allegations never fully disappeared. They simply faded from public discussion. By 2019, multiple threads converged. Epstein was still active. Emailing journalists and associates, Diddy maintained his music and business empire, curating events and cultivating influence. Meanwhile, Steve Harvey's family became a media focal point, centered around his stepdaughter Lori Harvey. In the summer of that year, Lori, then in her early 20s, was repeatedly photographed with Diddy, in Cabo, New York, and even Italy, where she sat at lunch with Diddy, her mother, and Steve Harvey himself. Images showing Lori with her arm around Diddy transformed a rumored fling into a widely discussed public story. Fans and observers were quick to question the optics. How could America's dad figure be seemingly okay with his stepdaughter dating a man nearly 30 years her senior, whose reputation included whispered allegations of control and unusual private gatherings? Lori's mother, at 54, was just slightly older than Diddy, adding another layer of complexity to the narrative. Despite the controversy, much of the coverage framed it as routine celebrity intrigue. Outlets like TMZ described it as a casual romance, and sources close to Diddy framed it as part of his personal life and a process of healing following the sudden death of Kim Porter in late 2018. Insiders initially framed Lori Harvey as a longtime family friend who provided comfort, not a romantic partner. Some even emphasized that she had consistently denied any involvement with Diddy's son, Justin, despite years of speculation linking them, but viewed from the perspective of late 2025. That 2019 timeline appears very different. Federal court testimony revealed that by then, Diddy's alleged pattern of flying partners and hired participants across cities for extended encounters was already well established. Witnesses described him using recordings as leverage, relying on a tight-knit staff to maintain control, and keeping his operations deliberately hidden. Those casual vacation photos from Italy or Mexico suddenly feel less like innocent snapshots and more like glimpses into a carefully managed, darker orbit. At 49, Diddy was nearly 3 decades older than Lori, adding another layer of tension to the optics. Meanwhile, newly released Epstein emails this year provide further context into how the ultra-wealthy perceived risk, written often in all lowercase and punctuated with odd quirks. Epstein's messages reveal a man so confident in his immunity that he didn't bother polishing his words even when discussing presidents, accusers, and sensitive matters. One 2019 email suggested that Trump was aware of the girls, backed by staff testimony about how frequently the former president was present. Another showed Epstein strategizing with writer Michael Wolff on how to turn Trump's public statements into leverage. The tone is casual, dismissive, even bored, the voice of someone certain that nothing he writes could ever seriously threaten his freedom or reputation.
Reinforced the research that I did on my book that Jeffrey Epstein has always viewed himself as smarter than everybody else, and he also has collected people all along the way, particularly over the 2 decades through his trafficking. And that was always to get secrets and bits of information about individuals that he could pass to other people. He trafficked.
This sense of invulnerability raises questions about whether a similar culture of protection surrounded figures like Diddy and Steve Harvey. When Lori was photographed with Diddy and later seen with her parents in Europe, the public expected a response from Steve. Instead, there was silence. While media outlets trended on the story, Steve's social feeds focused on promoting the Sand and Soul Festival in Cancun and posting anniversary trips with Marjorie. Commenters openly questioned, "Where is Uncle Steve?" wondering how someone who authored a best-selling book on relationships could remain silent while his stepdaughter was rumored to be romantically linked to a man nearly her father's age, man whose private life had long been clouded by whispers of control and late-night excess. This silence is all the more striking given that Steve's own private life had already been under public scrutiny. Mary Harvey had publicly claimed that their Texas divorce left her financially and emotionally devastated, alleging psychological manipulation and that Steve had leveraged his influence to marginalize her while rebranding himself as a self-help guru. His attorneys countered aggressively, and judges eventually dismissed her primary claims. Yet those allegations linger in the background, coloring perceptions of a stepfather who reportedly watched Lori sit across from Diddy at lunch and chose not to react publicly. Hollywood insiders say that such silence is rarely accidental. What seems like inaction often reflects a deliberate strategy coordinated by managers, lawyers, and network executives. Any public comment acknowledging concern could spark follow-up questions about what Steve witnessed backstage at events, trips, or private gatherings spanning years. Questions the industry would rather avoid. Steve Harvey and Diddy have navigated overlapping social and professional circles since at least the mid-2000s, crossing paths at celebrations, award shows, and industry gatherings. By 2019, when Harvey could have publicly expressed disapproval over the rumors surrounding Lori, Harvey, and Diddy, questions arise. Was he only now uncomfortable because the paparazzi caught it on camera? Or had he long ignored whispers circulating behind closed doors? Meanwhile, Congress has been urging the Department of Justice to release all remaining Epstein-related files under a proposed Transparency Act. Diddy sits in FCI Fort Dix, still facing more than 70 civil lawsuits tied to his business dealings and personal fortune. Against this backdrop, Steve Harvey's choices gain renewed scrutiny. On one hand, he is the talk show host preaching self-worth, accountability, and responsibility. On the other, his ex-wife claims emotional devastation. His stepdaughter became entangled in a rumored relationship with a man later convicted of serious misconduct. And Harvey maintained an extended silence while the public watched a broader pattern emerges. These aren't just isolated incidents but networks of protection. Epstein casually discussed using damaging knowledge as leverage. Diddy allegedly used recordings and financial control to maintain secrecy and influence. Steve Harvey, according to filings and interviews, aggressively managed the narrative of his divorces while presenting himself as a redeemed, wiser figure. When juxtaposed with images of Lori Harvey dining with Diddy in 2019, Epstein's 2025 released emails, and Diddy's eventual conviction, a crucial question emerges. How deeply did Harvey understand these worlds? And how many calculated decisions were made behind closed doors to shield them from public view? Mary Harvey's anger is now public. For years, Steve Harvey's empire seemed insulated from the shadowy networks surrounding Epstein and Diddy, as if daytime talk shows, family game nights, and motivational tours existed in a separate universe. But a closer look at the paper trail cracks that illusion. The dismissal of Mary's $60 million lawsuit in 2017 was not a declaration of innocence. It was a technical ruling that the case belonged in Texas, leaving allegations of soul destruction, deprivation, and psychological torment unresolved. At the same time, Epstein's emails from 2008 to 2019 casually referenced Trump's knowledge of his operations and strategized about leverage as if it were routine business. In that same window, Diddy was building the pattern that led to his 2025 conviction and 5-month federal sentence, a pattern involving travel, recruitment, and orchestrated encounters spanning more than a decade. The story is not revealed in a single viral photo or headline, but in a lattice of documents, legal filings, and public records. Epstein's 20,000-plus pages of correspondence illustrate a clear model of influence and pressure. Even amid typos and casual, lowercase rambling, Mary Harvey's public claims of emotional and financial harm juxtaposed sharply with court dismissals based on technicalities. And Diddy's trajectory, including civil suits, whispered settlements, and a federal conviction for transporting individuals for paid encounters, underscores the reality of long-running systems of protection and control. Structured silence becomes a key theme. Harvey's empire, estimated at $200 million in the late 2010s, did not expand in a vacuum. It grew while serious allegations were deflected, rerouted, or quietly dismissed. It grew while Mary's claims were shifted to Texas and lost in procedural mazes. It grew while PR teams polished his public image, landing him lucrative book deals and a Fox network platform, even as court filings contained words like torture, conspiracy against rights, and kidnapping. This is not gossip. These are formal filings, attorney statements, and verified reporting. The same principle applies to Diddy. Inside FCI Fort Dix, his management of privileges and sanctions for substance violations illustrates how structured oversight in media narratives can shape public perception, even amid serious legal consequences. In both cases, what appears as silence or delayed reaction often masks a carefully calculated strategy to maintain control and protect reputations. Insiders familiar with high-security federal facilities say that rule violations are often a convenient tool when authorities are dealing with high-profile inmates whose presence carries both security risks and reputational headaches. According to a former corrections consultant, a star inmate who knows the inner workings of corporations, political figures, and decades of private gatherings is never just another number. He is a living archive. When such an inmate also faces dozens of pending civil suits, alleging coercion and recorded encounters, every disciplinary hearing, early release review, or minor sanction carries enormous stakes. Turn to the leaked correspondence from one notorious financier, and the mentality is eerily familiar. In 2019, He detailed insider knowledge about top political figures, referenced staff testimony, and even suggested he held the keys to leverage them. He proposed providing sensitive images to journalists, though nothing ever materialized. In casual, sloppy lowercase, punctuated haphazardly, he laid out a worldview in which consequences simply did not exist, a mindset of someone certain that the system would always bend around him. This raises the question, where does someone like celebrity host Alex Monroe fit in? Industry veterans quietly refer to a protection racket for reputations. Some in powerful circles may never participate directly in wrongdoing but assist by staying silent, managing introductions, or smoothing over emerging problems. In Monroe's world, former staffers describe a highly organized team arranging travel, prepping locations, and managing sensitive situations behind the scenes. Meanwhile, Monroe was building his brand as the face of family values, signing long-term deals, and maintaining a public image of warmth and authority, even as his former spouse went on record alleging significant financial and emotional harm. 2017 illustrates this tension. That year, Monroe's ex-partner filed explosive claims of psychological manipulation and emotional abuse, citing terms like soul destruction. The court quickly dismissed the case on a technicality, never testing the allegations in a full trial. Simultaneously, Monroe was signing a major publishing deal and extending his media presence to new platforms. Corporate backers embraced him as a safe, trustworthy figure, prioritizing revenue potential over unresolved legal drama. Monroe's crisis management skills are equally instructive. When previous public missteps threatened his reputation, he deftly transformed them into opportunities, pivoted platforms when ratings waned, and expanded his brand through festivals, radio, and social content. These maneuvers demonstrate strategy, not mere charm. If he can survive repeated public scrutiny and emerge stronger, one can imagine the precision with which he handles sensitive situations that brush against the edges of scandal. By late 2025, as the financier's bizarre emails are dissected in Washington, a convicted mogul sits behind bars, and viral clips resurface of past accusations, the lesson becomes clear. Monroe's wealth, estimated in the hundreds of millions, was built in the same years when systems quietly reinforced power for those who understood the rules. His proximity to controversial figures was not accidental, his silence not coincidental. He rose by navigating the machinery of influence, carefully managing perception while the system quietly protected those who played along.
Doesn't it? She probably wants to get out early. So I think that we have more digging to do. I think the DOJ transparency effort here is the right thing, but the reason it's on a Friday, Will, is I think there are no smoking guns. There's other places we have to look.
Well, Buck,
the critical question now is not simply what Monroe knew, but who continues to shield him, what they gain in return, and what secrets remain poised to emerge when the next wave of documents is released. When the truth finally comes to light, the ultimate challenge will be deciding whose narrative to trust. Until then, the only certainty is that every move will be watched closely.